During the spring, a mysterious cosmic event happens, and it sparks hypotheses among experts about what the outcome would be. Astronomers argue over some theories, while engineers get hyped up on variables and magnetic fields. On the other hand, the mystics also go out of their way and preach about the end of the world, as per usual. But to everyone's disappointment, the cosmic event doesn't cause any visible effect on anything except one unnoticeable creature, which is the ants. The small and almost deemed as an insignificant form of life receives the greatest change in the history of the animal kingdom. As it turns out, the different species of ants suddenly evolved intellectually at an exponential rate, allowing them to form a hive mind. A biologist named Dr. Ernest Hubbs first discovers this and starts conducting an investigation. He then finds out that in the Arizona desert, different species of ants start assembling and communicating. By summer, the rest of the world had already moved on from the mysterious cosmic event, but Hubbs keeps his attention on the ants. As time passes, only a little part of his research is shared with the world, while most of it is kept a secret. So, when an informational specialist named James Lesko joins Hubbs in his research, he doesn't have a single idea of what they are about to face. Meanwhile, one ant with a green abdomen seems to be overseeing all the different species of ants, which has formed a new colony. This ant also visits the ant queen and checks on the worker ants that are taking care of her eggs. After communicating with the ant queen, the ant with the green abdomen heads out for its mission. Concurrently, the other worker ants start to build something in the desert. The next day, on their way to a town near the Arizona desert, Hubbs starts documenting his investigation. According to Hubbs, the traditional antagonism between the different species of ants has come to a dramatic halt. Furthermore, there have also been notable disappearances of those insects that prey on the ants, such as the mantises, beetles, and spiders. If this continues, this will eventually lead to the inevitable and exponential increase in the ant population. Therefore, Hubbs proposes an immediate full-scale attack against the ants, requiring an experiment station to be built with several pieces of equipment that are necessary to address the problem. Arriving at the town, which is almost empty as if it was deprived of life everywhere, they discover 7 strange yet particularly designed towers with small openings created by ants. After that, Hubbs and James go to a nearby farm where they find dead sheep that were slaughtered by the ants. They also talk to the only farmer left in town, Mr. Eldridge. The farmer shows the two a makeshift fire defense system he designed in case the ants try to attack them, as well as introduces them to his wife Mildred, their granddaughter Kendra, and helper Cleet. Mr. Eldridge tells Hubbs and James that the people used to think that it was some kind of infestation, but as the pestering worsened day after day, people decided to move out until they were the only ones left. Hubbs then questions the farmer about the towers, but Mr. Eldridge does not have any idea about them. After getting all the information they can acquire from the farmer, Hubbs notifies Mr. Eldridge that he and his family need to evacuate from town as well. Hearing this, Mildred protests that they cannot push them off of their house and land, but her husband points out that Hubbs has a point. After a few days, Hubbs assumes that the zone is now clear of any civilians. At this time, the experiment station is also completed and self-contained. With everything set up, the experiment will now officially begin. Turning on all the necessary equipment, they start to track the ants' behavioral patterns. The next day, Hubbs receives a call from the higher-ups saying that they want the result of their study as soon as possible. Even though Hubbs points out that what they are doing is not as precise as other experiments and requires more time and patience, the higher-ups are persistent, asking Hubbs and James to do whatever it takes to speed up the experiment. Because of that, Hubbs goes to the tower and destroys them using a gun, while James monitors from the station if they will get any activity from the ants. Luckily, they get the result that they want. However, later that night, the Eldridges, who turn out to be still in town, get attacked by the ant. As their horse gets bitten repeatedly, Mr. Eldridge goes to assess its situation, only to find that it is already too late. Then, he asks Mildred for his gun, planning to end the suffering of their horse. Seeing this, Kendra breaks down crying. Just then, Cleet sees that the house is falling apart as the ants destroy it from within. Left with no other choices, the family gets into their truck and leaves. While on the road, Mildred regrets not following the advice of Hubbs and James. Mr. Eldridge calms her down, but when she sees ants in her hair, Mildred freaks out even more. She tries to hit the ants, also hitting the driving Mr. Eldridge in the process. To make matters worse, the truck is also full of ants. Due to that, the farmer loses control of it and crashes near the experiment station. Fortunately for them, no one gets hurt in the crash, but they are forced to continue on foot. Meanwhile, at the station, James already manages to break down the basic movements of the ants. He then runs his ant signals through the digitizer to record them on tape. With that, he can finally search for a correlation between the ants' movements and languages and theorizes that the ants are actually communicating with each other. But all of a sudden, the power supply in the station gets cut off and their truck explodes. Hubbs guesses that the ants get into the generator, but he assures James that the backup supply will start soon enough. When the power supply returns, Hubbs releases a yellow chemical to return the favor to the ants. However, he doesn't notice that the Eldridges are also outside trying to reach the station to seek help. As the ants die due to the yellow chemical, the old Eldridges also suffer. The next day, wearing their safety suits, Hubbs and James inspect the aftermath of the chemical release last night. And to James's shock, they find the 3 Eldridge family members dead, covered in yellow chemicals. However, Hubbs shows no remorse for them and continues inspecting their truck. Fascinated, he tells James that to blow up the generator, the ants created a chain and sacrificed themselves. Yet James shares none of Hubbs' fascination and points out that they caused the life of 3 people. Again, Hubbs dismisses him, casually saying that people just get killed sometimes. As they check on Cleet's body, they find holes in his hands where several ants come out. Hubbs takes the opportunity to collect the ants for further studying. At this time, Kendra emerges from a cellar door, turning out to have survived after she managed to hide in the basement of a nearby house. They immediately take her to the station and let her rest after disinfecting themselves. Back inside, Hubbs continues to study the ants he collected, which happens to include the ant with the green abdomen. Just then, Hubbs reveals to James that after their evolution, an ant is now not considered an individual. Rather, an ant is currently an individual cell that functions as a part of the whole. Hubbs compares the ants to a society with perfect harmony that involves generosity and self-sacrifice. They have a perfect division of labor and preordained roles in their colony. Of course, ant colonies already exhibit these kinds of behaviors beforehand. But after the mysterious cosmic event that causes the evolution of the ants, they perfected it more than ever before. In addition, their adaptability correspondingly increases. After that, Hubbs is about to begin the behavioral test on the ants, but James gets distracted by Kendra, asking Hubbs when they will get the young woman out of town. That is when Hubbs tells James that he is still not informing the higher-ups about what happened, worrying that if ever their bosses know that there had been a casualty in the duration of the experiment, they will shut them down. He declares they should just take care of Kendra until the experiment is finished. But James is not convinced and threatens to call the base himself if Hubbs doesn't do it. At this time, Kendra enters the room and James shows Kendra the ants in hopes of entertaining her. However, this reminds her of her family's tragedy and she destroys the equipment in front of her, causing the ants to get free and bite Hubbs. James immediately stops her and takes her away from the ants. Hubbs follows them shortly after disinfecting the room, killing all the loose ants inside. Meanwhile, outside, a surviving ant picks up a piece of solidified yellow chemical, then brings it to the colony and presents it to the ant queen. The ant queen eats the yellow chemical and lays a yellow egg, which will hatch ants that are immune to the compound. Going back to Hubbs, who is currently on a call with the higher-ups, they receive a report about the Eldridges family, who are within the experimentation vicinity, and ask if Hubbs and James had any contact with them. Yet Hubbs lies to them, saying they know nothing about them. At the same time, James continues deciphering the ant language, now using the tape recorded during the first encounter with them. If he happens to be successful at this, he and Hubs will have better preparation for the ant's next move. When Hubs checks on him, James sees the bite mark on Hubs' hand and notices that it is getting worse. But Hubs assures him that he is fine and there is nothing to worry about. The next day, Kendra wakes up and sees James watching over her. She then takes the opportunity to apologize for what she did and for not causing Hubs to be bitten by an ant. But James consoles her, saying that he understands why she did that and assures her that she will be able to leave the place in just a short while. Hearing this, Kendra musters up all her courage to ask if her grandparents are already dead, to which James pitifully confirms. A little later, Hubs shows James what the ants did overnight. To James's surprise, the ants have built a reflectorized mound around the station to increase the heat inside using the light from the sun. And as of now, the temperature inside already rises to 5 degrees hotter. Also, the ants managed to build the reflectorized mound on a poisonous strip where the yellow chemicals are. Hubs uses the camera to show James the yellow ants, a newly evolved species of ants immune to the yellow chemical. James starts to panic about everything that is happening, saying that he did not sign up for a war against a bunch of intelligent ants. Wanting to give up the experiment, he asks when the helicopter is coming to pick up Kendra and plans to tag along with her. But Hubs convinces him to stay, saying that being allowed to study an intelligent and dominating colony of ants is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. This is when James realizes that Hubs never actually called the base for evacuation. But when he is about to call the base himself, the control panel suddenly short-circuits. As it turns out, the ants already begin their attack. As the temperature inside the station rises, Hubs adjusts the air conditioning unit to balance the heat of the place. Listening carefully, he notices that there is an ant inside the air conditioner. To counter it, he puts a mantis inside as well. On the other side of the station, James makes Kendra listen to a white sound, which is every sound in the world pushed together. He then sends it to the mounds outside, and when it bounces back to them, a sound is missing. This sound turns out to be a static noise. As he extracts and broadcasts it again, the mounds start to break one by one, killing the ants inside. Checking on the surveillance graph, James sees that the ants are going crazy. While all of this is happening, the mantis manages to grab and eat the ant before it destroys the machine. Unfortunately, the ant with a green abdomen shows up and pulls the mantis down a live wire. As the wire fries the mantis, the air conditioner catches on fire and eventually gets broken. James and Kendra stop the fire by turning on the sprinkler system. A moment later, James talks to Hubs, wondering how and why the ants seem to know all their moves and plans. On the other hand, the worker ants collect the bodies of the yellow ants. As it turns out, they are lining them up like they are mourning their deaths. At night, the temperature in the station finally goes down. During Hubs' recording, he states that they can only use their equipment for a few hours at night. According to him, James believes that the ants are letting them use this equipment for some purpose. However, Hubs does not share the same assumption. Shortly after, he finds James sending a message to the ants. Hubs checks on the message that James sent, only to find out that it is a parallelogram shape. Asking James about it, he points out that mathematics is a universal language. If the ants can understand his message, therefore there is real intelligence on their side. Concurrently, Kendra is sleeping when the ant with the green abdomen visits her. When she wakes up, she begs the ant to go away. The next morning comes, and Hubs' condition is not getting any better. As he spots the ant with the green abdomen, he does everything to find it, even ransacking the place in the process. Kendra calls James for help, but even he cannot do something to stop Hubs, until finally he kills the ant with his own hand. After seeing what happened to Hubs, Kendra starts to blame herself for what is happening. At night, Hubs apologizes to James for what he has done. James says he needs to take it easy and get some sleep. At this time, Hubs comes to a realization that if they want to take down the colony, they must eliminate their queen. But James is already giving up. All he hopes for now is the ants' mercy, wishing that they will let them go. However, Hubs does not let go of the thought of fighting back. As soon as the ants send back a message, Hubs locates the ant queen. James, on the other hand, deciphers the message of the ants, which appears to be a circle with a dot inside. He thinks that the ants are implying that instead of the ants being the test subjects, Hubbs, James, and Kendra are the actual test subjects, while the ants are the ones studying them. Furthermore, the dot inside indicates that they want someone from the three of them. Hearing this, Kendra remembers the time she destroyed the lab equipment and killed the ants before, thinking that she is the one the ants want. Their conversation is interrupted by Hubbs when he informs James that he manages to locate the Ant Queen. Taking the opportunity while the two men are distracted, Kendra heads out and sacrifices herself for the sake of James and Hubbs. Going back inside, Hubbs prepares to face off against the Ant Queen, but James tries to stop him, saying that he is in no condition to do it. Pissed, Hubbs then tells him to do it instead and makes the ants realize that man will never yield to them. At this time, James reveals to Hubbs that it is him that the ants want, but instead of getting scared, Hubbs becomes more determined to end the ants. When James is about to send another message to the ants, he sees the note that Kendra left, saying that they are free now. To make matters worse, he finds Hubbs just getting out without any protective suit on. James quickly runs after Hubbs, but there is no stopping him now. As he makes his way to the hill where the Ant Queen is, a mound shines bright, making Hubbs struggle to see and falls into a pit. James immediately goes after him, but he just witnesses as millions of ants eat Hubbs. Seeing this, he goes back and gears up with a protective suit, taking a blue chemical with him, then makes his way to the hill where the Ant Queen is to end this fight. But as he comes near the hill, the ants attack him, and even the protective suit cannot do anything against them. When James reaches the hill, he is just down to his normal clothes and he slides down the pit. But to his surprise, he finds Kendra still alive, just waiting there for him. Just then, James realizes that the ants do not want Hubbs but Kendra and him instead. As Kendra welcomes him with open arms, he knows that they are being changed and made part of the colony for the purpose only the ants would know. The movie ends with the sun setting as James and Kendra proceed with the mission given to them by their queen. Phase 4 has a very promising plot but suffered a very poor execution. Maybe due to various reasons like the small cast, budget, and writing, this movie could have been a lot more. This movie, although the duration is just less than an hour and a half, feels very long to watch because of the bland writing and acting.